Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp build, our first of 2024. Hope you had a wonderful holiday period. So we're going to kick things off with the Woodland Retreat prefab, which is a brand new prefab up on the Atomic Shop at the moment. It's the first one of the new year, and I think it's safe to say this is the largest prefab Bethesda have ever done. And they've done a pretty impressive job with it, I think. There's a couple of things that are not quite where I might like them to be. But on the whole, it's really cool. It's both massive, but just about the right size to be detailed enough when you decorate. And yeah, all in all, came together really quite nicely. I know a couple of people have had the occasional little issue here and there, but in my experience, it's pretty good. So, let's take a little look at the map and see where we are. So, this is a spot I have built in a couple of times before, right here over by Summersville Lake. We are just on the eastern side there. Decent bit of morning light. There's kind of a cliff here that slightly obscures some of the light, but it's a nice flat bit of ground. It's by the road, which makes sense for a house like this. And yeah, given the sheer size of this thing, which as you can now clearly see is very, very large, you really need big, flat, open ground, and this is one of the best spots for it. And the flatter the better, because that way you can get it to sit a little bit lower down, which solves two problems. Firstly, when it's too high up the bottom of the foundation and it shows to an excessive level, doesn't necessarily look as good as it might. The other thing is the sheer height of this means the top story, the attic space, which is usable, can end up outside your build area because of the size of the sort of upper dome. So having it as low down to the ground as possible is helpful there as well. We got away with it okay on this one. Right, let's move on inside to this massive, great house. So here we are in our little foyer. Definitely had for an entrance hall kind of a vibe. But, sort of two directions to go here. So figuring this out was a bit of a head scratcher. Obviously, this thing comes undecorated, so you got to kind of figure out, right, what do I want to use each space for? Fairly standard for a prefab, but in this case, it was a bit more, I need to think about this before I figure it out. So I've gone for a lounge here where the big windows are, most of them, and then leading on to an open plan dining space next to it, which I think works quite well. It was that dining space actually was the first thing that clicked for me, and things sort of started rolling out from that point quite well. The veranda out there. So, yeah, decoration on this came together quite nicely. I should say we got to the absolute limit of the build budget and then had to pull a few things back so that I could squeeze things like the doors on, which I slightly forgot. I always do that last anyway, but I didn't leave enough budget for them, so a couple of things had to be removed. But, all in all, the build size, the prefab size is both massive and it feels it, especially when it's empty. And but just about small enough that you can decorate it enough to make it look properly decorated if you walk a fairly fine line. So I might, on occasion with another build, make the whole thing much more detailed. In this case, the kind of cleanish, light touch detail kind of works for the environment in the house, and it allows us to actually fill the whole place rather than running out of budget to decorate with. Because other than the prefab, it's just decoration in here, so just give you an inkling as to how much decoration there is and why I've also not done a build type video, because it would just be me placing objects with very little fanciness to it. It's just a case of decide what you want to do with the room and then decorate accordingly. But I would suggest, if you come to do this prefab and pick this one up, that you put big pieces of furniture in, like, say, the table and chairs here, first, and then come back after you've put all of the major furniture items all the way through the building, then do the surface level stuff afterwards, so you can kind of keep an eye on your budget better. But it worked quite well. So I've got a kitchen in here, and gone once again for the blue modern set, and the husband's cooking station in there, so that I've got the closest thing to a matching stove we have. And yeah, the idea was to have a kitchen that felt big enough for the rest of the house, and this room worked quite well for that. So quite pleased with how that's come out. Looks alright. Do wish that sink matched the rest of the cupboard fronts there. Don't know why it doesn't, Bethesda. But it is what it is. Mind you, technically nor is the cooker, but it's the closest fit. But the cooker's not part of the set, so at least there's an excuse there. But yeah, quite cool. Well, a couple of little side rooms in this place, and in this case, it felt sensible to use it as a kind of larder, pantry type deal. That's the meat freezer there at the back that is the current Fallout First reward. Unfortunately, the door doesn't close on this thing, which is a bit weird, but otherwise it works as a fridge. It's quite a cool item. I do wish that door did close, actually. I'm not the only one to express that opinion, I know. But, yeah, it's quite cool. Tuck it into the kind of pantry here works quite nicely. Putting the barrel behind the door in hindsight was unnecessary, given the direction the door opens, but, yeah. It's a good example, that little space, of the limitations of the budget on a prefab of this size, in that I would have liked to put stuff on the shelves in there, but I did not have the space for that. So, they are currently bare, but it is what it is. I've locked those kitchen doors to keep Yasmin in there because she keeps wandering around and opening the doors, but somehow she still teleports outside. Maddening. Oh well, what can we do? Bearsy here I forgot to decorate up, which is a bit of a pity. There's always one display case, right, you're going to miss. That was the one I walked past 3 times without remembering it was a display case. Oh well, it looks fine without. Another side room down here that is our little downstairs cloakroom. I don't know where all this red light is coming from at all. No idea. It's very, very strange. But there it is, and I can't get rid of it. So, other than that, it's quite fine. So one of the big things that is somewhere between a personal gripe and a bit of a kind of a moment with this is this prefab sits in a weird halfway house between being neat, tidy, clean-looking, complete, more or less intact house and being kind of a bit bombed out and destroyed. The windows being broken, and particularly the ceiling and a couple of the walls here and there, and there's a bit of wear and tear on the woodwork, which is kind of fine, but some of the walls are over the top and the ceilings are all over the top, and floors somewhere in the middle, so it just doesn't quite match up because a lot of the wallpaper is quite clean and fine, so it's kind of can't make its mind up a little bit there. Got ourselves a little TV room in here, or a projector room, or movie room, or whatever. Quite like this space. But yeah, that weird sort of halfway between clean and undamaged and also bombed out at the same time. It doesn't quite know what it wants to be in some ways, which is a bit awkward to work with. I feel like you could take this either direction and go for a really scrappy salvage type of build, which I might do if I use this again, because as you can see, we've gone for clean, crisp kind of manor house type vibe here for this particular thematic build. There's our main bathroom, which as you can see, the walls just kind of don't make sense with the clean wallpaper elsewhere. It's strange to me. But, yep, all the major clean furniture in here, and I think it looks alright, barring, yeah, as I say, the walls, which I can't do anything about. Obviously, this building has 4 floors, and it feels like there's kind of too many potential bedrooms for the size of the building. 3 bedrooms is fine, but 6 would seem a little absurd for this place. Maybe 4 would be okay, but 6 just seems too much. So I decided to make this whole floor into a kind of secondary living floor, hence why we've got the TV room next door, and we have the pool room gaming space in here, which fits quite nicely. This 9-ball pool table is the one from the Fallout First reward a while back. There is now available a blue version, which is pretty much exactly the same, but blue. And I think that's on the current season, I don't think it's Atomic Shop. It might also be in the expeditions, but I think it's the scoreboard. I'm on the spot now, can't quite remember, but either way, it should be available to everybody, irrespective of whether or not you have Fallout First now, the blue version, so keep an eye out for that if you want an interactable pool table. You need a good bit of space to put them in, though, because the size of the animations and all. So for the last room on the first floor here, we have an office space, which I thought was quite a good fit for this interesting shaped room. Yeah, I did think about making this kind of setup with a nod to YouTube and stuff, because I thought that would be fun. But in the end, it was just a little bit awkward with the space in here, and well, actually that really sums up a YouTubing office space, actually. But for a camp build, it would have been a bit awkward, and it just wouldn't have looked quite right. So I went with a nice kind of clean office study space, which I quite like. Got the, what is supposed to be, I mean, the game calls it the presidential desk, but it's supposed to be a miniature version of the Resolute desk, isn't it? But, and I suppose it kind of does that. It's definitely not wide enough for to be a replica of the original, but it's a darn sight easier to fit into your camps, I think, for that. Again, it needs to be a reasonably clean build, otherwise this is going to look out of place, but I've merged that terminal into the surface there. The terminal's under the power connectors stuff. Well, I just dropped it on the top and then used the merge glitch, which I will link somewhere around if you're not sure on how to do that. And sunk that in. Took a little bit of trial and error to make sure the legs weren't sticking out the front or anything, but it's come out quite nicely, I think. Quite like that office space. The piano there and a few other bits and pieces out on the landing here, just because we've got, two landings in this place of a size, and they're sufficiently large that they need to be treated a little bit like rooms, I think, and have furniture put in them, otherwise they kind of look bare and incomplete, which was apparently very difficult to say. So, up to the second floor. I'm trying to remember where I am now. One of the good things about this is each story is slightly different as you come up the stairs, so you can kind of figure out where you are reasonably quickly from there, which is quite cool. Nice little balcony out here. Although, especially when you haven't decorated the thing yet and you've just first plonked this building down, it's actually surprisingly easy to get lost in here. Get a little bit turned around. Especially as the decoration, at least in the landings and all, is exactly the same all the way up the building. Yeah, inside the actual room's not so much, but still. Yeah, a little bit of decoration out here. We have bedrooms that somehow Yasmin's managed to open, despite the fact she's never actually been up here. She's still managed to open the doors, which is weird and slightly disturbing. So this bed here is the one that is included with this particular bundle on the Atomic Shop, as are those wardrobes, which are also stash boxes, and that massive mirror at the end there. These are all part of this same bundle. And I thought I'd stick them all in the master bedroom, because it kind of works. The dressing tables from a previous season there, but this bed I find a bit weird. The whole built-in ashtray I know was a thing. It's a horrible thing, but it's a thing nonetheless, or was a thing. The bed's weird. Like, the foot end of the bed looks like it's just mattress and possibly valance on there, but the head end looks almost like there's a blanket on it. I'm not quite sure which one it is. Very strange. I put a couple of extra lamps on there, and it fits quite nicely in that gap, though, which is quite cool. A little room down here that quite logically made into an ensuite. I suppose you could make it into like a walk-in wardrobe if you wanted, although I'm not sure we quite have the equipment to make that work, really. So, bathroom, probably a good shout. Mix this one up. It's basically the same as all the others, though, in that they are kind of rough-walled. Looks like they've got a serious damp problem. Forgot to put a lamp in this one, which is not worth trying to fix, being as I'm not likely to spend a great deal of time in there, and I would have to figure out what to delete to make room on the budget for it, but yeah. Works as a bathroom. Kind of wish the walls were up to the same standard as everything else and not quite so beaten up. But, yeah. Again, my one major gripe with this is that it doesn't quite know what it wants to be in that regard. Otherwise, it's really quite cool. Now, into the second of the more adult bedrooms. Got to use the history paintings, I suppose you'd call them. We're in a season, I think, back over the summer. Haven't really had a lot of occasion to use those so far, but they look quite cool in here. We're starting to hear some noise coming down from the attic here. So we'll be heading up there in a bit. But yeah, all in all, quite like this. Decent space. Got the 76 rug on the floor there. Some plants in the window. Lots of little plants around here. Looks quite nice, I think. And we'll head next door into the children's room. I know a couple of people have talked about having frame rate issues with this prefab. I can't say I have had that issue myself. It's been fine. The one issue I did have ended up being a problem on my end, not to do with the game, so that was more of a coincidence than a related thing. But yeah, all in all, I think it runs fine in the space, especially given that I've packed it with decoration and detail as much as I have. It still doesn't seem to have too much trouble, so that's quite cool. I don't know if consoles are quite as fortunate, perhaps, but I'm quite happy with how it came out. Quite happy with how this children's room came out as well. It kind of keeps the theme of the house with the furniture styles for the most part, but also makes it kid-friendly, which is kind of fun. We will make our way upstairs in a minute. I like having those phones. They're kind of fun. The old, very early era phones, anyway. Kind of doesn't make sense having a chair next to them, because you'd have to stand up to use them, but the little cluster of furniture looks good, so I kind of like that. We'll head up to the attic, wherein is our crafting space. Yeah, frame rate wise, I've not had any major issues. The one time it did come up was when I tried to actually move the whole prefab. The game really struggled with that after initially placing it. which I needed to do to line things up a bit. But that actually went okay. It was just, I mean, the game always struggles with that with big prefabs, but this one is particularly large, so sort of bear that in mind. A little patience is needed for moving the whole thing around. Yeah, all in all, quite happy. Up here, you can see the walls kind of really have that beaten up kind of vibe, which makes a bit more sense in the attic, I think. But it went into the crafting space quite well, because it's always going to be scrappy. The crafting spaces, the crafting benches, they always look kind of beaten up and scrappy, so it's kind of... It made this the logical place to put that. The other good thing about having the crafting space on the top floor, all the way up in the attic, is that I kind of have to use the whole structure, or at least wander around the whole structure when I want to come back and use the crafting space or drop anything into my scrap box there or anything. Which just means, because the kind of space you really need for a functional camp is relatively limited. You need crafting space and maybe a bedroom, and that's about it, really. So having you explore the whole place to get to the crafting room means you kind of draw on what the work you've done elsewhere a little bit more, or get to enjoy it a bit more, so I like it for that. But that kind of leads into what I might do if I use this prefab again at some point in the future, which is kind of go the opposite direction and board off a lot of it and only use parts of it and make it really look like it's kind of a destroyed pre-war building that somebody's moved into post-war, and go down that road instead and board off bits of it and so on. Because you really don't actually need a structure this large. So it's got quite a distinct theme, the structure, in my opinion. It's very, very much a big country house kind of vibe. So you either got to lean into that or kind of turn the whole concept on its head, in my opinion. So as you see, we went with leaning into it this time, so maybe next time we'll turn it on its head. But there we go. Hope you folks enjoyed that one, and thank you very much for watching. It's quite a long tour, but it's a really big structure, so kind of inevitable. If you guys did like it, please consider dropping subs and likes. I very, very much appreciate. Loads more Fallout builds coming in the future, as well as Starfield stuff, and a lot of cool base building and crafting survival games coming out this year, so keep an eye out for those, because we should be doing some very fun stuff on that, I think, as well. So, yeah, Starfield ongoing, as well as live streams on Fallout and Starfield, and other stuff coming up as well, so lots to keep an eye out for. Social media links, merch store, channel memberships, all that good stuff down below if you want to support that way as well. I really appreciate. And yeah, for now, thank you very much for watching. I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.